Shana Tova, everyone. Happy New Year. Let me reach out to you on this first day of the year 5783 and wish you a sweet year. Wish you a good year, good of health. Wish you a year with happy moments. Also, may I wish you a year in which you will deepen your commitment to Torah study, to a performance of acts of loving kindness, Gemilut Chasadim, a year of peace in the Ukraine, a year of peace in Israel, and a year of peace to everyone on earth. So in order for you to understand this joke, you have to know that one of the greatest commentators of the Torah and Talmud is Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki. And Rashi lived in France between the years 1040 to 1105. Rashi is quoted numerous times when people try to explain and understand the Torah and the Talmud. And Rashi is relevant even today. So here's the joke. It's not the best joke, but it's a Jewish joke. So a man comes to the rabbi and says, "Rabbi, I would like to build a house." And the rabbi says to him, "That's great. You will find these instructions in the Talmud. Go and check the Talmud, and the Talmud will give you precise details on what to do." So this man goes, checks the Talmud, and builds his house exactly as the Talmud says, to every specification. He puts the beams where the beam is supposed to go. He puts the floor where the floor is supposed to go. He's all happy. And finally, the house is all finished. And he goes and gonna put the mezuzah up. He bangs the mezuzah against the doorpost, and the entire house collapses. He goes to the rabbi. And he says, "Rabbi, I built the house exactly to the specification of the Talmud. And I have fixed that mezuzah, and the house collapsed." And the rabbi says to this guy, "You know, Rashi asked the same question." I think the point of the joke is that you can be procedurally correct and still be a failure. You can follow precise instructions and still have a problem at the end. Because to be successful is finding the truth. You have to be precise, but at the same time, you have to be precise in the final stage. So during the past years, we have followed the procedures precisely. We have done everything is being told us to do around the pandemic. And we have also seen people complaining that we have not arrived to the point we want to be at. We follow instructions, and instructions don't take us where we want to go. Do you want to know something? This same argument happens over and over, everywhere, in every aspect of our lives. We follow the procedure, and the result is failure. And though it is crucial to follow the instructions, it is perhaps even more important to know when to break the rules to achieve success. The conclusion is that the procedure does not get you to the result. And throughout most of the Torah, not precisely the reading of today, but the reading of last week, should I say last year, where Moses says to the people of Israel, if you follow this procedure, you will get to that result. If you listen to God, you will get to the result you want. We read it over and over in the Torah. And right now, the Jewish community, who is perhaps one of the communities that is most interested in getting together, in following the procedure, we are struggling whether we have seen success or not. Because over this 2.5, 3 years, this synagogue, like many other synagogues around the world, have seen less and less people coming to shul. Some members have left because they might say, if I cannot be there in person, why belong? And some of you who always felt comfortable coming to synagogue have stopped coming for health reasons. COVID-19 has inflicted unspeakable suffering to our world, to our country, and particularly to the Jewish community and to ourselves. We look at the year gone by and we mourn the loss of those who loved so much, who are not here any longer because they succumbed to COVID-19. We have been humbled by this pandemic. The pandemic has laid our physical vulnerabilities. It has exposed our economic fears and has frayed the very fabric of our democracy. Psalm 27, which we began reading at the beginning of the month of Elul, the psalm for the season of repentance, asks of us one thing, and one thing, that is to return to God's sanctuary. The heroic hallmark of our people since the very beginning has been that will to reconstruct. Abraham, of this Torah reading of today, first modeled that to us. He's struck by the insight that there's only one God. He smashed the idols of his father's worship. Moses, having just received the law of the Torah on Mount Sinai, transformed ancient Israel's religious life by the way of the Mishkan, a mobile desert tabernacle to house God's presence. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was actually taken out in a coffin out of Jerusalem, asked Vespasian to give him Yavne for him and his sages. And together they transformed Judaism from a temple-based religion of sacrifice into a rabbinic-based religion of study and mitzvot. And we know fully well that procedurally we cannot live a Jewish life without a community. You and I know that there are prayers that we cannot say alone, that require a minyan, a group of 10. Because Jewish life provides something that is very profound, that lacks in modern life: the sense of community. When we assemble like today and we join with others to worship and to observe our traditions. So whatever your walk of life is, whatever the challenge you face in these days, It is incumbent upon us to really come to the realization that has to be a willingness inside of us to think our future anew. And believe it or not, that new has roots in the past. Because our individual's joy is the joy of all of us. Because personal sorrow is the pain of the many. Because the concept of minyan is, after all, the experience of community in action. We laugh, we cry, we pray, we learn, we celebrate, we believe, we doubt, we dream, we build, we eat together with others. Because in the final analysis, the Jewish self acquires its fullest meaning in community. This last year at Temple Bethel, we have struggled to get a minyan. We used to have a minyan, full minyan, in the morning and in the evenings, every day of the year. There were exceptions. If 10, that was too many. We used to get a minyan in the morning and in the evening. And I venture to say that the procedure, meaning coming to the minyan, actually gets you to the result, which is being part of the community and not being alone. Many years ago, I saw a bumper sticker in a car of some, let's say, revival movement. And there were 3 words there. And the words were, "I found it." If there is any Jewish response to that, I would like to say, we never lost it. Because the faith of Israel is not the faith of the individuals. The faith of Israel has been always the faith of the community. We are so few in the world. We are so small. And we cannot afford to lose you in your individuality. Perhaps we have not been clear enough. We need you. We have a big tent at Temple Bethel to house everyone. Right now, we have 4 different services running simultaneously to fit your taste. We want and we are the big tent because we realize that being open and available to you will recover that sense of community. But you know what? You insist on being alone. And it is perhaps the modern ability to have a phone that we can connect and text to one another, the possibility of Zooming for services, but you insist on being alone. And we see how our attendance has dropped and membership has dropped. That after a bar bat mitzvah, parents decide that it's enough for them and for the whole family. That after the child goes to college, then what do I need a community for? We see that all the time. And the question every rabbi, every cantor has in the world is, why then are we teaching our students for so many years, not just Hebrew, not just the Haftorah, the Torah portion, but to be part of a community? Why are we insisting on telling our youngsters that community is very important When later on at the bat mitzvah age, the family is going to say goodbye. And I'm telling you this on Rosh Hashanah because it is now when we all think about commitments, about emotional commitments, spiritual commitments, monetary commitments. In terms of the procedure, what we need is for people to come back to the synagogue, for people to become members of the synagogue once more, to return to the daily minyan, to populate our Friday nights, our Shabbat morning and Shabbat afternoon, and to show that we take very seriously that the synagogue in Hebrew is not a Beit Tfilah, a house of prayer, but rather a Beit Knesset, a house of gathering. Because being together, procedurally and substantively, is what Judaism is all about. Digging deeper, we know that the question of belonging is not only about membership, but it's about the transformation at the core of each individual. We're not asking you to join us because we just like being together, which I like, but because in that procedure, your inner core is going to be transformed. And the truth is that we do not have in this community, in the entire community, the story of being a tzaddik, a righteous person, alone. In Judaism, you are not a righteous person if you go to a monastery or to the desert and to be alone and say and claim to the world that you're righteous. You know why? Because you need others to be a Jew, and if you want to be a tzaddik, you need others to be close to you. To be a tzaddik alone is very easy. It is when you strive bringing people in that being a righteous person becomes more difficult. I am not mean to anyone when I'm alone. When we have other people, then is when our personality starts to flourish. So attending synagogue is not really about the individual. Attending synagogue, I would say, is not about getting in touch with yourself. I would say that attending synagogue is about reaching beyond what we know and what we are. The shul resonates with the vibrant presence of others. The life-tested and value-laden text of an unbroken dialogue with the Almighty. A shul brings the poignant memories of an ancient people, the presence of other Jews, and the enveloping nearness of God is what makes us holy. Meaning, technically, lies outside of yourself. In the synagogue, we seek that spiritual infusion not to ourselves only, but to master life, to get out and improve the world with others. Spirituality in Judaism is not about the individual. It's about what we can do for the collective. In our tradition, Moses was alone only for 40 days. The rest of his life and prior, he was with people, struggling with people, having difficulties with people, being challenged by people. But he decided not to go along with God alone and leave the congregation on the side forever. He comes back to the community, and sure enough, he encounters trouble. Because of all Jewish life is about being in community, about gathering together, about being part of the minyan, about encounter differences from others. I'm asking you on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and the rest of Yamim Noraim to consider the possibility of coming back to shul the rest of the year. So we can, all of us, stop being observers and start becoming participants. Come to shul. Make it a priority this year. Join us and be part of the community. And if you have to build a house, my suggestion is don't come to the rabbi. Shana Tova.